It's time for a cup of coffee with Will and Chris at Slumberland Furniture. From Slumberland Furniture in Osage Beach, here are your hosts, William Holtz and Chris Schneider.
Back at Slumberland at the lake for this week's cup of coffee. I'm Wild Will.
I'm Uncle Chris.
And Shootout Offshore officially in the books. We'll talk about that. And listen, a lot of people saying we thought Shootout was in August. It still is. We're going to tell you the difference of Shootout Offshore and the Lake of the Ozarks Shootout coming August. Plus, we're going to talk some local headlines. Hey, bridge collapse. We'll talk some boating safety. And did you know that the Ozarks actually had professional football?
No.
Yeah,
What?
The Ozark Lunkers. And not just that, out of Springfield, Missouri, they kicked off their inaugural season over the weekend, and they beat the team from Iowa. The Iowa Woo, we're going to tell you all about the Ozark Lunkers and what you need to know about the Arena League with pro football right here in the Ozarks, plus some cool local events coming up, as well as all kinds of stellar content right here on Lake TV. But first, this from Slumberland at the lake.
Hey everybody, Daryl Cunningham with Slumberland Furniture at the Lake. With the memorial sale, they're up to 60% off. We have 0% interest financing for up to 36 months on top of the already great discounted prices. And don't forget, we deliver the entire lake area. So come check us out at Slumberland Furniture, where we're bringing happy home.
Yeah, and when you stop here at Slumberland at the lake, make sure you tell them that Wild Will and Uncle Chris sent you. All right, so as we get into this week's show, Shootout Offshore, you probably saw it all over Lake TV platforms, all over Lake TV. Over the weekend, it's officially in the books, and we're going to talk about what transpired over the weekend. But first, you know what I heard a lot this weekend?
What?
Man, I thought Shootout was in August, and when did they move it to Camden on the Lake and Shady Gators? What is going on? And so there seems to be a bit of confusion, and so I wanted to explain that Shootout Offshore is part of the UIM and P1 World Championship Series for Class 1 and the APBA National Championship Series, and that's like, okay, that is confusing. Those are sanctioning bodies and promoters, and they're different sanctioned races for different classes of boats. They travel around the country, and they compete on different bodies of water, similar to like NASCAR, or the chase standings. You get different points for these different races, chasing the world in the national championship. So that's what just took place this weekend. And that used to be known as Lake Race. And it used to be at Beavers, then back at Camden, then back at Beavers, then back at Camden. And so back in March or April, the Lake of the Ozarks Shootout, the big event in August that raises money for charities and local fire departments. You know, the Top Gun, American Outfit, all 9 straight years, $675,000 raised for more than 40 charities and fire departments a year ago. That still exists. They gained control of Lake Race, or this powerboating event. So it got a new name, Shootout Offshore. And that was, like I said, the sanctioned competitive boat races, same type of boats on the water racing side by side for those standings. And so we tied a bow on that. We still have, everyone's looking forward to Lake of the Ozarks Shootout in August, and that is going to start Tuesday, August 20th with the Bob Morgan Memorial Hall of Fame, and the inductees were just announced this week for that. That starts, then you got your street party Wednesday, and then you've got the mini shootout the week before that. So that is still coming. And to find out all the information about Lake of the Ozarks Shootout, you need to go to lakeoftheozarksshootout.com. You'll see all the mini events, all the schedule, how to register your boat, how to get a boat slip, where to stay the week of shootout, as well as all kinds of great content about what you can expect. And so for the Shootout Offshore, first year event, super, super cool, and you can check out our full recap of what happened on all Lake TV platforms. We were out there the whole weekend. It was a great event, but I thought it was worth noting the difference because Lake Race now becomes Shootout Offshore. When you hear Shootout, Lake of the Ozarks, you think of one massive event. It kind of is the biggest event of the year at Lake of the Ozarks. It's the biggest event in offshore throughout the year, is the Shootout. So now you're going to have 2 different events, it looks like, each year. You're going to have Shootout Offshore in the summer, And then in the early fall, you're going to have Lake of the Ozarks Shootout. So I thought it was important to kind of break those two down and show, yes, the Lake of the Ozarks Shootout is in August, and we still have that coming up here in a couple months.
I call that the big shootout, right? Yeah. Okay, the one in August. Still the same time, same place, same bat channel, which is Lake TV and everything. But so that's there. Just, they just renamed the lake race the Shootout Offshore race. So it can be a little confusing. Completely different kinds of racing. The first one, the offshore race, is NASCAR on the water. The second one is like a time trial, So very different races, a lot of fun. I think this first race, the Shootout Offshore race, I think this is going to become monsterishly popular. I think people are going to love this kind of racing, to see the boats going side by side and as Myrick Coyle puts it, roundy round, because they go in circles like NASCAR. I think people are going to love that as the years go by and the shootout people get more familiar with it and, what they're doing with that and how their TV production is covering the races is going to get better and better. That's going to be a huge race. That might at some point surpass the big shootout race, I think, just because of the kind of racing.
Sure. And there's no doubt. So we anticipate that will continue to grow here at the lake. And for those of you that maybe got your first taste of offshore racing over the weekend or just seeing some of Lake TV's coverage of offshore, that there's other events throughout the year coming up. And I mean, there's the Class 1. You've got 3 more races coming up. You've got Sheboygan, you've got Sarasota, and then you've got Key West as well. You've got a lot of different events for the other classes and other bodies of water.
And you're really getting into this. I mean, you're really loving this, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you should, every time we get together, about all that he's talking about is Shootout Offshore stuff, right? I mean, it's incredible. But you've become friends with these guys and, buddies, and they just have welcomed you into their family. It's amazing.
Well, we've had a lot of exposure into the boating and into the offshore world over the last 10 years. Lake TV has always had, whether it's shootout or lake race, historically over the last 7 to 8 years. And back in 2019, our team put on the entire TV and radio broadcast and produced a 128-page high-quality program magazine with Speed on the Water. And so, we got our first taste then and have kind of stayed close to it, but we've never truly understood or gotten head over heels for it till here recently. And now that we are, it is a really exciting sport with some of the greatest people. And so the best things from Shootout Offshore 2024, the Lake of the Ozarks got a great blueprint to have sanctioned offshore racing here with a great body of organizers. The Shootout Board of Directors, Leah Martin, Ricky Smith, and their team. I mean, you bring what they bring to the table and their organization and their structure. It's going to bode well for having an event of this magnitude. First year, going to be growing pains, going to be things to figure out, but against all odds, they stayed up, they got it done, and they pulled it off. And so what that means is we can look forward to exciting racing twice a year, not just that, but of course, like we said, Shootout in the fall. So 4 things real quick that I thought the best things I saw this week at Shootout Offshore. The first, the storyline, Tyler Miller, owner of MCon Racing, also the throttleman for the 43-foot Skater Cat, as well as the 2022 38 Skater Cat in the Super Cat class. He returned just about 4 weeks after a major back surgery from Michael Doc Jansen following the races in Marathon, Florida. That was part of the APBA circuit with Super Cat. He gets out of the boat and he realizes something's wrong with his back, right? And so he has surgery. That kept him out of Cocoa Beach about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And so he didn't run there. He didn't run Class 1. He also didn't run in Super Cat. And replacing him in Class 1 was Steve Curtis. Replacing him in Super Cat was Johnny Tomlinson, two of probably the 2 most greatest names in the history of offshore racing. And so there was a lot of speculation. Was it's going to be too soon? Tyler Miller can't return. Well, these are his home waters. MCon is the home favorite boat, the team, the people, with Myrick Coyle, Tyler Miller, and crew. And so he announced right before the race he was going to step back into the throttle for Class 1 with Myrick Coyle, and that's exactly what he did. They double checkered flag with both Class 1 races. They earned 40 points for the Class 1 standings, catapulting them into first place following 3 races in. And so he stole the show over the weekend. That was the coolest thing. Just all the stories, all the ties with him. Doc Jansen does the surgery. he kind of miraculously, in about 4 weeks' time, gets back into the throttle. And so not just to do that in front of your home crowd and with your family and your crew on hand, but to take 2 checkered flags was incredibly impressive. So the second coolest thing I saw was Team Celsius with Chris Hopgood and Jay Mueller. They won the checkered flag in the super stock class.
Yeah, I saw that. That was amazing. Huge lead. It got close at the end, though, right?
It did, and that's the most competitive class in offshore racing. There were 13 boats slated to hit the course for that class race, and 12 did. But traditionally, this has been a class that's been owned by Jack Hammer with Reese Langheim and Julian Maldonado, and they actually have had like 16 or 17 consecutive podium finishes if you take off marathon. They took the checkered flag, but they were actually penalized. There was a technicality, so they placed 7th. Now, if you take that race out, they have won 16 consecutive, or placed with 16 straight podium finishes, and so they took 2nd. But Team Celsius, Chris Hopgood is like one of the most beloved, genuine guys in the industry, and so there were a lot of people that were really excited for him and Team Celsius. We were down there in the pits, and another guy from another team, as he was standing there talking to his crew, came up behind him, picked him up, and threw him in the water. It was pretty cool. And then I was talking with Chris right afterwards, and I asked him, what emotion are you feeling? And he said, I'm in tears right now. I don't have words. This is so special. It was his first checkered flag, and to do that on a different body of water, because these guys are used to salt water, on these big bodies of water where it's rougher, different conditions sometimes, and so the boats perform completely different. I could tell that it meant everything to Chris Hopgood and these guys. So that was really, really cool. And Jay Mueller, with him in that boat, he had a busy weekend, winning more than 1 checkered flag across the classes. And so in Superstock, that was the second coolest thing. The third coolest thing I saw at Shootout Offshore was just the camaraderie within the sport of offshore racing. Nothing quite like it as far as guys wanting to help each other. Everybody knows each other. They're helping each other rig their boats. They're helping each other figure out what's going wrong on different sides of the boat, or fuel injection, whatever it is. They're all in it together. And even though they're competing against each other, these guys are not in it for the money. They are absolutely losing money by traveling the globe, at least the country, with their setup, their boats, rigging them. They've got their crews. And so it's really cool just to see how well everybody works together, how much they love each other. And this is the only sport outside of college and below where you see people in it for the right reasons. Like, these guys aren't in it for the money. These guys are in it for the love of the sport, and it is really cool to see. So that was the third coolest thing I saw. And the fourth that I saw was, you don't typically see it lake race or these sanction events, but the Shootout Board of Directors brought in a fundraising element. They had different fundraising efforts throughout the week leading into it. They had an auction on Friday night where you had like Rick Lindsay with X Insurance donated you got to ride in his helicopter on Saturday for the races and shoot photos or videos for one particular class. You had concert tickets and cruises, and so there was a substantial amount of money raised for local charities and nonprofits, which you hadn't seen at this event historically. And so all in all, it was an epic weekend, and those were just 4 of the cooler things I saw.
How cool is that? I mean, you were out there front and center for everything. And it's funny, yesterday I was talking with a golf pro at one of the golf courses by the water, and he said those helicopters were flying so low, the ones that were covering the races. He said we would have to stop playing when the copters flew because we were afraid we were going to hit them, right? I mean, so that was pretty amazing, pretty cool. I didn't get to see as many like shots from the helicopter that I wanted to see, but that looked really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you historically in offshore racing, it's cool because you have a handful of people who can fly these races, right? And there's rules, there's kind of like the unspoken rules of flying or piloting a helicopter around boats and around this type of sport. And so, I mean, for Rick Lindsay and X Insurance, this is a very skilled pilot, doesn't answer anybody, and he's not afraid to get right on. And it was really cool to see because I have never, in the last few years of seeing some of this stuff, seen a bird get that close to the boats and the shots they turn out. You go to X Insurance Racing and check out some of the shots they've got. It looks like they're like floating right over the boat. I've never seen those shots, so I'm all for it.
I am just amazed at how much you've learned about this sport. I mean, really in the last few months, because you did a recap of a race a few weeks ago, just like dead on and all the different classes and stuff. And you did that again for this race, right?
Well, we got better. From Cocoa Beach to Shootout Offshore, we got better. But, takes such a huge team effort. And Andrew Evans, our DOP, he is, everyone kind of that I talk to has watched him grow in his work over the last 10 years. And I mean, his video work over the last 10 years has been all over the shootout. I bet he's probably got between 30 and 50 million views on his shootout videos from the different places they've been put and shared. And I mean, and he worked the entire week. Starting
I hear you had him carrying all the equipment and everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest working man in media. And then we had some great help. We had Spencer Wall, and not only did he come out and turn out some great shots, but man, he stayed at the studio Saturday night into Sunday morning. It was about 2 o'clock that we were working on that. He was there till about 10 a.m. into Sunday morning, worked those 8 or 9 straight hours putting that together. And so then we had Robbie Brewer came out, flew some drone. And of course, Daniel Carnahan, amazing work. He shot with us over the weekend. And then you had Michelle Kitchen, who was switching the live races back at the Lake TV studio. Yep. You had Megan Albers and David Leatherberry helping with promotion and social media. And then of course you had some of the greatest personalities and people leading into the race on the Community Spotlight show to help promote and kind of get people excited. And so collectively, I mean, our team was all over it. And listen, we've only posted and been able to share about 2% of what we captured this weekend. So make sure you stay tuned to our platforms to check out all of that, because you're right. I have absolutely fallen in love with it. Andrew has absolutely fallen in love with it. I know Spencer is really fired up about it. And so we're just really thankful, because this industry is full of great people who are very giving, and they make it easy to want to learn about them and their boat and their story. And to me, you know, as much as I love the doc series, I love telling the people's story. Yep. And I'm finding that to be true in the world of offshore. So buckle up, folks. Make sure you're staying tuned, because we are just scratching the surface on what we're wanting to do in the offshore industry. So as we move forward, an interesting local headline. It wasn't right here at the lake, but anytime you see something like this, I thought it was worth mentioning. But there was a bridge that collapsed over the weekend with a truck and a couple of people in the truck that actually plunged into the Osage River.
Yeah, this is over in Cole County. Friday, May 31st, it occurred on a bridge on Lock and Dam Spur, right? I wasn't familiar with that. Patrol says the bridge collapsed when the truck attempted to cross it Friday afternoon. It was towing a trailer, crossing the bridge around 3:30 in the afternoon when the bridge collapsed, sending the vehicle and the 2 occupants down into the water. And this was a ways, too. This was up there a bit. According to the Highway Patrol, no one was injured during the incident, which is good. So the Lock and Dam Spur is a gravel road that runs parallel to the Osage River, southeast of Jeff City, less than 10 miles from where the Osage goes into the Missouri River. But a little bit scary there, right? That something like that could happen. But on some of those bridges around here, you got to be really careful at weight, you know, and what you're taking over those bridges.
You know, and from the photo, I kind of was looking, and it almost looked like a private estate or something that the road led to. And so my question was like, man, do the homeowners there have any other way out of that area? Because, you know, it looked like it was kind of like a peninsula or a bluff or something. Yeah. Hard to see just from the photo that was provided by the Missouri State Highway Patrol Troop F. And then good work to Lake Expo on some of their work to that. But just luckily, no one was injured, as you alluded to. But kind of a wild headline I thought was worth touching on.
Kind of reminded me, too. Remember we did a story a few weeks ago of the bridge up off of, I think it's off of Highway 42 that has been out. So the residents in that had to travel like an extra hour every day just to get to Osage Beach or wherever, and they're trying to get that bridge fixed and working again and all that stuff. But that's probably the same. You know, some people are going to have to go a long way around.
Sure, or if there's water, which it looked like there obviously was with the Osage River, they'll just get into the boat and drive around. That's my preferred.
Do a ferry or something.
That's my preferred method of choice anymore. All right, so speaking of boating, our friends at Lake Expo, in the spirit of boating safety and staying safe on the water, they came out with a really great feature article about boating at night, things to know. Yeah. And they brought out 4 important bullets that I wanted to touch on. And when you think about boating at night, Chris, it's already dangerous on the water. It's more or less forgiving than land. You don't have as much precise control of your vessel. But then you talk about loss of depth perception because of the darkness, as well as potential confusion from lights and dock lights and the reflection those cause off the water. And so that's even on perfectly clear nights, not taking into consideration foggy or weather nights when you have bad weather. So there were 4 things that the article alluded to. You go over the first one.
Right. So the night lights have to be right on your boat. The lights have to be right. And Mrs. Uncle C and I, we don't even boat at night. We don't go out at night because it is confusing. It is weird. You can't see what's in the water in front of you, and it's hard to tell if boats are coming at you or going the other way. It's really kind of strange. But these lights are really, really important. And the Highway Patrol will say they pull more people over for having incorrect navigation lights on the boat. So that's something to keep in mind. But, you know, on the front of the boat, you've got lights on both sides, on either side. So there's a red light on the port side or the left, right? And there's a green light that's on the starboard side or the right side. And the reason why is so that other boats can see if you're, you know, what side of the boat is coming at you, if it's coming at you this way or going away from you. And on top of that, there's a white light that's supposed to be visible all the way around by everybody for a couple of miles during good weather and everything. So very important. But something I didn't know is that there are different rules for different size boats.
Yes.
So you might want to go to moga.mo.gov, and apparently they've got all the guidelines for what you need for your specific style and size of boat and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's traditionally, I mean, those are the main rules that you alluded to. And then there's also some things like for the port side and starboard, those green and red lights, that those have to be visible from a mile away, whereas your all-around white lights have to be visible from 2 miles away, and that's on a perfectly clear night.
Yeah.
Meaning it's not recommended when the weather's bad or there's fog to be out there. And then like you said, yeah, depending on how big or small your boat, I mean, if you've got a big houseboat or you've got a big speedboat, it could change. And so there is an entire list, as you alluded to. Hopefully we'll get that link up there on the website.
And also it's illegal to display spotlights or docking lights continuously, right? And you see that sometimes out on the water where they've got their big spotlight or the docking lights on. Those lights can be used briefly to try and identify what's going on in the water in front of you, which is smart. Or, you know, when you're docking the boat and stuff, but not all the time. You're not supposed to leave those on, like car headlights, not supposed to do that, right?
So that's like the most confusing to try to follow because it varies a little bit and there's different sides. The second thing is the speed. Now there is a night speed limit of 30 miles per hour, and that is set for 30 minutes after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. Now, if you have limited visibility, they encourage you to go much slower than 30 miles per hour. It's very dangerous and unforgiving, and so if you don't have to be going 30, it's not recommended. And I think the reason the speed limit is 30 because there's certain boats that to get on plane, you have to get close to that speed. Otherwise, you're sitting there and you can't see anything in front of you because the front of the boat is, you know, blocking or obstructing your view.
Right.
But if you don't have to get on plane up there at 25, 30 miles an hour, highly recommended to go slower, give yourself extra time to make adjustments or see anything else that might be going on around you. And the third thing is?
The third thing is keep a good lookout and keep your head on a swivel. And this, again, is a very important thing. You need to be looking around all the time, see if boats are coming up behind you or coming off, you know, from the side of you. And you can't, it's kind of like defensive driving. You can't expect them to see you. You know, don't rely on the other boater to see you. You got to make sure you see what's going on. And that's so important. And of course, the captain of the boat is the one who is most responsible for that. But it's really good to have, like, you know, your wife or your second mate, whoever's kind of next in charge on the boat, to be helping you out, looking for stuff.
Call it a first mate. Yeah,
that's right.
First mate. I'm just learning some of these neat terms like starboard and port side and those things. But another thing, when you say extra alert, is even if you have the things that we've talked about, you're going the speed limit, your lights are perfect, right? You cannot assume that all of the vessels that are on the water even have any lights or are going the speed limit. So that's why that extra alert is, don't assume just because you're following the rules and you're being safe the ones around you, so that extra alert and head on a swivel will help you even when those other ones around you may not be following.
And I want to go
along.
back to the speed too. 30 miles an hour on the water is really fast. I mean, we don't think so in a car. 30 miles an hour is slow. But on a boat, that's really moving. That's fast. It's kind of shocking to me that it's even that high at night. But I think you're right. It's for some boats to be able to get up on plane, but you shouldn't be going that fast at night. No way.
And the fourth and most obvious that we want to reiterate, as Lake Expo put in the article, if you booze, everyone will lose.
Yeah.
Now, there are so many great lakefront dining and spirit establishments, and there's nothing wrong with responsibly having a cocktail with your dinner or, having a few drinks and designating a sober captain. However, that sober captain is the caveat here. You have to have a sober captain, and that prevents catastrophic events from transpiring and taking place. Because let's face it, the water is dangerous, and when you mix drinking and you mix dangerous speed, they don't mix well.
No,
and
not
we've
at all.
seen time and time again over our course of being down here at the lake of those catastrophic events being because of the lack of a sober captain. And so we urge you to please follow these 4 rules: your night lights, your speed, be extra alert, and always designate a sober captain. And it's a really good idea to also have a sober first mate to keep the extra eyes on, because you know what they always say, even if you're married and in the car, you may not say this, that 4 eyes are better than 2, but it is especially true on the boat, right?
Absolutely. And my wife actually bought me a shirt that says, "You'll have to forgive me for what I said when we were docking," or something. Because, it's a stressful situation out there, right? And something usually gets said one way or the other.
In the car is typically where your true colors come out, right? You get cut off in traffic and you say what you feel, and then I'll ask myself, what fruit of the Spirit was that?
Yeah, where did that come from?
What was I operating in? So those are your 4 boating rules. Now, we did want to mention in our final story of the week, hey, did you know there's pro football right here in the Ozarks?
Did not know. What is a lunker?
So I'm not sure what a lunker is. It looks like a big old catfish.
Okay.
But they're in Springfield. There is a professional Arena League team. There's a new league called the AAL, the Arena League. There is 4 teams in their inaugural season here in 2024. There's the Iowa Woo from Waterloo, Iowa. There's the Kansas City Goats out of Kansas City that actually play at the iconic Municipal Arena.
Wow.
Believe it or not, John Wooden's won national championships in that building.
I like John Wooden.
The Duluth Harbor Monsters, and then in Minnesota, and then of course the Ozark Lunkers right in Springfield. And so they play at Wilson Logistics Arena at the Ozark Empire Fairgrounds, and they're also going to have horse and livestock show there. And for the Arena League, it's different than other football you're used to, okay? There's play clocks and no huddling.
You're all fired up about this,
Oh,
too. You
yes.
like that. Awesome.
Anything to compete with the NFL, which if it's up to me should stand for not for long with the way they're behaving. So play clocks, no huddles, a 50-yard field. You play 6-on-6. All players are eligible receivers.
Wow.
All 6. 3 of them line up on the line, so even your lineman can go out and catch a pass. It is fast. It happens fast. The quarterback cannot advance the ball past the line of scrimmage, and instead of kickoffs, you have quarterback throw-offs, no punting, and instead of onside kicks, you have onside conversions if you want to keep the ball. And so in the Ozark Lunkers inaugural season, they had their home opener, the first game of the season, in Springfield at Wilson Logistics Arena, and under the direction of Cam Bruffett, head coach, who played in Evangel and was at Parkview in 03. Now, they were 0-10, and now he's the head coach of the pro football team. So they won their opener 69-40 against the Iowa Woo in front of 3,400-plus fans. Ronnie Bertelsmeyer stole the show for the Lunkers. He had 3 touchdowns, a kick return touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, and may have even added a 4th. I couldn't get any stats. I was just watching highlights and putting them together. The defense forced 7 turnovers, and a guy by the name of Ren Rodriguez played for the Eldon Mustangs.
How about that?
He wears jersey number 18, and he started in the secondary, and he's a starting receiver for them. So really, really cool. The Ozark Lunkers, they're on bye this week. They'll be back at home a week from Saturday when they'll play the Duluth Harbor Monsters from Minnesota. That's going to be in Springfield. So I guess that's basically all the time we got. But who knew we had pro football right here at the lake?
Yeah, if you call that pro football.
Hey, listen, it's going to be cool. We're Ozark Lunkers fans, whether he likes it or not.
There you go.
Hey, for this week's Cup of Coffee, I'm Wild Will.
I'm Uncle Chris.
And we'll see you next week.